Moving right along here into my Monday Night Raw review for February 3rd, 2020. Overall, I thought this was a very strong show. I'm not going to lie to you. I've been very harsh on Raw over the last year, and rightfully so. There have been some episodes that were cringeworthy, to say the least, and have not featured great storytelling, compelling action, pay-per-view build, stuff of that nature. But I really think in the last maybe month or so, if not longer, the show has really hit a stride. And there was a lot of talk around the time that Paul Heyman, took the reins of Raw back in June, that what would his influence on the show be? Would he have much creative influence? Is this all what we're seeing right now, Vince McMahon's vision? Does Paul Heyman have something to do with it? I believe that he does. Is he solely responsible for Raw's improvement in quality over the last month or two? Probably not. I think you can't poop on Vince for all the bad stuff and then praise Paul Heyman for all the good stuff. It goes both ways. I do absolutely think that the Rusev, Bobby Lashley nonsense and the Eric Rowan push is not all Vince McMahon. I'm sure that was partly Paul Heyman, especially knowing his history with ECW and storylines like that. I am not at all surprised that a storyline of that, of that nature would happen under Paul Heyman's watch. So whether that was his idea and Vince McMahon loved it or Paul Heyman just went along with it, I don't know. But the storyline sucked. It still sucks. I think it's still going on. I honestly have no clue. I know Bobby Lashley was in the main event of Raw this week in the triple threat to determine the number one contender to the WWE Championship at Super Showdown. Rusev reportedly has, creative has nothing for him. I saw that from What Culture earlier today. Whether that's true or not, it's not hard to believe, to be honest with you. I can absolutely believe that WWE may have nothing creatively for Rusev to do, which is why they dragged out that storyline with Lashley and Lana and Rusev and Liv Morgan for as long as they did. So that's a whole other story. But again, going back to the grander scale of things here, to the bigger scale of Monday Night Raw, since the show is overtaken creatively by Paul Heyman back in the summer of 2019, people were like, oh, in 2 weeks, the show still sucks. Within 2 weeks, people were already pooping on Raw and saying that Paul Heyman had no creative influence and all this other stuff. And the quality of the show, to be fair, really did not change for some time. And we had to go through a bit of a dark period late last year with all the squash matches and stuff like that in order to get to where we are now. So it looks like finally all the effort put into building people like Drew McIntyre, people like Ricochet, I feel hesitant to say they're putting effort into pushing, because prior to this past week, the guy was doing all of nothing, a lot of nothing until this past Monday. Not really him, but Andrade is another one that has reaped the benefits of Paul Heyman's recent rise in power on Monday Night Raw. He's been doing really well. I mean, aside from the recent suspension, he's still the current United States champion. Those guys, I'm trying to think of who else. I know there's many more people I'm not thinking of off the top of my head. Charlotte and Rhea Ripley doing their thing, which I'll get to momentarily. Angel Garza, I'm absolutely positive, was a Paul Heyman decision. Asuka's really benefited from having Paul Heyman in charge of Raw, now that she's, still feuding with Becky Lynch over the Raw Women's Championship, the Kabuki Warriors doing their thing. Aleister Black being slowly but surely built up. Buddy Murphy's another beneficiary of the Paul Heyman era here on Raw. So again, it took some time. We were seeing a lot of squash matches for a long time there. We still are in certain respects with people like Eric Rowan, which I could give two shits about. But overall, it feels like Raw is a much more complete show. At least compared to SmackDown, which is in shambles right now. And they have some stuff, liking and some stuff worth investing in. People like John Morrison and The Miz have recently reunited, which is awesome. Sheamus is back, which is cool. The Usos are doing their thing. The Roman Reigns-Baron Corbin feud was absolutely awful, but it may finally be over, thank the Lord. The women's division really hasn't lit the world on fire. Naomi's back, which is great. That's a step in the right direction. And Lacey Evans was doing her thing, and Bayley has kind of fallen flat as a heel champion. That show is much more hit or miss. Raw, it feels like in recent weeks to the past month or two, has been a much easier show to sit down and watch every single week, and this show was no exception.